Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 1272 of the Juicebox Podcast. Today's episode is with Melissa. She has 3 children. Her middle child has type 1 diabetes. And today we're going to pick through her story of how her child was diagnosed and what made it so difficult to figure out and what else they found out about their lives while they were looking around. Nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan. When you decide that you want incredibly comfortable and quality sheets, towels, and clothing, you'll be going to CozyEarth.com. If you've made that decision, you might as well save 40% off of your entire order by using the offer code JUICEBOX at checkout. Surround yourself in quality for 40% off. JUICEBOX at checkout at CozyEarth.com. I know that Facebook has a bad reputation, but please give the private Facebook group for the Juicebox Podcast a healthy once-over. Juicebox Podcast, Type 1 Diabetes. The group now has 47,000 members in it. It gets 150 new members a day. It is completely free, and at the very least, you can watch other people talk about diabetes. And everybody is welcome. Type 1, Type 2, gestational, loved ones, everyone is welcome. Today's podcast is sponsored by US Med. usmed.com/juicebox. You can get your diabetes supplies from the same place that we do. And I'm talking about Dexcom, Libre, Omnipod, Tandem, and so much more. usmed.com/juicebox or call 888-721-1514. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by the Eversense CGM. Eversense is going to let you break away from some of the CGM norms you may be accustomed to. No more weekly or bi-weekly hassles of sensor changes. Never again will you be able to accidentally bump your sensor off. You won't have to carry around CGM supplies. And worrying about your adhesive lasting? Well, that's a thing of the past. EversenseCGM.com/juicebox. This show is sponsored today by the glucagon that my daughter carries, Gvoke HypoPen. Find out more at gvokeglucagon.com/juicebox.
Well, I'm Melissa. I have 3 kids at home, and my middle child figured out how to get around middle child syndrome by developing type 1 diabetes in October of 2021. I am one of those weird chicken ladies. I have a husband like him. He's at work right now, but yeah, heathen children are running amok, I'm sure, because we homeschool. And the kids are 14, 11, and about to be 5.
And the 11-year-old has type 1 for a couple of years.
Correct.
Now.
Leah. Mm-hmm.
Leah. Oh, okay. Leah. All right.
That's why I like that episode. I choose Leah because I do.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah, I guess you do.
Oh,
would
I
like
love that episode. Love that episode.
For the moment, you're going to be chicken lady if you're not careful. So, you know. You know what I say? Do something better than that or you're stuck.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure we can do better.
You can do better than that. Tell me about, hold on. So you raise chickens for eggs?
Yes. My youngest, so we started out doing it like just to be, hippie homesteader type deal. And then my youngest came out apparently with like major food allergies. She stopped gaining weight, that sort of thing. So having access to food that I control, the sourcing, the feeding, the everything got really important. And she passed eggs when she was about 2. But before that, like there was a period of time where to nurse her, I was eating lamb from one local farm, tallow that I rendered from that farm, and plantains and like sugar, salt, and a specific brand of bottled water.
You had to eat specifically just to breastfeed your youngest who has food allergies. What kind of food allergies does she have?
Nothing IgE mediated, so allergy can't help us. And GI couldn't help us. It's really like only the hippie out there alternative stuff that's helped at all. And she's still on a pretty limited diet. So I kind of live in the kitchen. It was really no big deal to add on, maybe we'll cut some carbs because I already lived in the kitchen.
Like I just get up every day and I make food. That's what I do.
That's what I do all day.
Wow. What happens to her if she gets food that she's allergic to?
So when she was a tiny baby, she would stop gaining weight completely. Like she didn't gain weight at all. Like I had milk flying everywhere. But she didn't gain weight for weeks on end. And then when I cut my diet down to almost nothing, she started gaining slowly. And then when I figured out exactly what she could tolerate, which is very few things, then she gained like a newborn again.
Huh. Did you ever tell the endo about that?
Probably. I don't know.
I see. I don't know.
It's some sort of inflammatory process.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That nobody can help us with.
And that's been, thank you, everybody. That's been her whole life?
Yes. She stopped gaining weight when she was about 6 weeks old.
Okay. Yeah, that's her whole life. And then Leah is diagnosed at what age?
She was 9.
Okay.
Yeah, that's 9 and a half.
And what was that presentation like?
Like a lot of people, we kind of mistook it for something benign and self or easily resolving. The story is, she's always been sensitive to gluten. A year and a half before her diagnosis, she got gluten and her pain was so severe that she ended up in the ER. Like mid-COVID, she had to go into the emergency room because her pediatric nurse practitioner could not rule out appendicitis. Her pain was that severe. And so they did an ultrasound and did a CT scan, and like the inflammation was visible, but it wasn't her appendix. It wasn't her appendix. It was just bowel inflammation.
Okay.
So then in October of 2021, we went to the annual wild game cookout on my husband's side, which is like a great time. I hate to miss it. Just a huge gathering of like the coolest people ever. And you have to bring meat that did not come from the grocery store.
Okay.
So that's really cool for us. And my husband is not as up on the whole dietary restrictions thing. He's used to, if it's at home, if it's available, it's safe for the kids. Because I just don't keep things in the house that aren't safe for them.
Okay.
So he allowed some desserts that were not safe. And so when she complained of belly pain several days later, I thought, oh, you got gluten. You're backed up. This is par for the course. And she just kept getting worse. She was in pain. She didn't feel good. She was kind of sleepy. But I was like, I don't feel great when I'm backed up either. And by that Friday, I was like, I don't like this at all. So I called the nurse practitioner's office and I was like, she got glutened. I think this is what happened. Can I bring her in? Can you guys, take a look at her? And they were like, you know what? This really just sounds like something that needs a Miralax clean out. So I, with their blessing, gave my child who was going into diabetic ketoacidosis a half gallon of juice. I will take that half gallon of juice, the guilt of that to my grave.
Oh, well, did that really change anything? Did it hurt anything?
I guess glucose at that point wasn't going to hurt anything, but we cleared any blockage, but she still kept getting worse. And I really thought I need to take her to the ER. And my husband was kind of like, I'm sure this can wait till morning. You're just hysterical, which, fair.
Okay.
Any other time he'd have been right. And so first thing, as soon as the urgent care walk-in opened in the morning, I had her in there. And by then she was doing what I now know is the Cosmal respirations.
Yeah.
But I was thinking her belly. She's got appendicitis. She's got something wrong with her belly. That's all I could think about because she'd been vomiting. I mean, my kid was so sick.
Yeah.
And I'm an idiot.
Oh,
it's really hard to, the hospitalist in the PICU said to me, he's like, dude, doctors and nurses miss this. You're not special for thinking that it wasn't diabetes. I mean, I really hadn't had that come across my brain.
Yeah, but I don't know why you would think
so we take her to the walk-in.
Hey, Melissa, she got a great the day before, which a lot of people don't get that. It's nice. You know what I mean? Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah. It's all. You did something.
I do feel like I tortured her. It's hard to shake that.
Oh my gosh. I'm now thinking I'd love a lovely clean out. What do you think of that? As you're talking about it, I'm like,
are you off your Metamucil? Like, take your magnesium, Scott.
No, I am. Don't worry. I took my magnesium. Everything's fine. But I'm just saying, I was like, oh, that might be nice.
Yeah, especially if you're going into the hospital. So we take her to the walk-in. The nurse practitioner there is great. Listens to her belly. Yeah, her belly sounds funny. Yeah, she's a little altered. And she's like, I would like you to take her to the ER like right now. And I said, okay, can I take her to the one here in town or do I need to drive 45 minutes to Children's? I'd rather go to Children's. She's like, okay, go to Children's. And then, I'm carrying my staggering 5 foot tall, I don't know what she probably weighed 70 something pounds at that point, down from 90 something. She's a tall, solid girl.
Mm-hmm.
We're staggering out, and the nurse practitioner goes, let me get you a urinalysis cup. Let's get a sample before you get on the road. And I'm sure she was going to check, now in retrospect, I think, oh, that's what she was doing. She just wanted to confirm
For glucose.
so that the ER could be.
She could do that while you were driving, so she could call there and be like, hey, I just sent a kid over with diabetes.
Yes.
Yeah.
She was like, do not stop for gas. Do not stop. Just go. And we were almost to Nashville.
When you ran out of gas? I'm just kidding.
No. We were almost to Nashville, and the number pops up for her normal nurse practitioner, like the one we see, the one who is her primary care provider. And I thought, oh, that's weird. And so I pick it up, and she says, are you sitting down? And I said, I'm in the car. I'm racing to the ER. What do you want? And
if you take insulin or sulfonylureas, you are at risk for your blood sugar going too low. You need a safety net when it matters most. Be ready with Gvoke HypoPen. My daughter carries Gvoke HypoPen everywhere she goes because it's a ready-to-use rescue pen for treating very low blood sugar in people with diabetes ages 2 and above that I trust. Low blood sugar emergencies can happen unexpectedly, and they demand quick action. Luckily, Gvoke HypoPen can be administered in 2 simple steps, even by yourself in certain situations. Show those around you where you store Gvoke HypoPen and how to use it. They need to know how to use Gvoke HypoPen before an emergency situation happens. Learn more about why Gvoke HypoPen is in Arden's Diabetes Toolkit at gvokeglucagon.com/juicebox. Gvoke shouldn't be used if you have a tumor in the gland on the top of your kidneys called a pheochromocytoma, or if you have a tumor in your pancreas called an insulinoma. Visit gvokeglucagon.com/risk for safety information. I don't know how you guys order your diabetes supplies like CGMs, pumps, and testing equipment, but at our house, we use US Med. And I'm going to walk you through the entire process right now. I'm looking at the email from US Med. It says, it's time to refill your prescription. Dear Arden, please click the button below to place your next order. Then you click the button. That was it. 2 days later, I got this email. Thank you for your order from US Med. We wanted to let you know that your order, and it gives you an order number, was shipped via UPS ground. You can track your package at any time using the link below. And then there was a link, and then it showed up at our house. Now I'm going to walk you through the entire chain of events. On the 29th, which was a Saturday, I clicked on the email. On that Monday, the 1st, I got an email that said the order had been sent. 4 days later, on the 5th, the package arrived. If you can do it easier than that, you go get it. But if you can't, usmed.com/juicebox or call 888-721-1514. Get started today with US Med. Get your diabetes supplies the same way we do.
She said, okay, so your analysis showed high ketones and high glucose in her urine. She is a type 1 diabetic. You need to get to the ER right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I'm almost there. Can you guys call ahead? Can you let them know? And it's COVID craziness. So I'm like, grabbing a mask off the back of the rearview mirror and trying to figure out how I'm going to get this child into the ER and stuff like that.
Right.
Nobody, and at the front desk, everybody's like, let me take your temperature. And nobody was matching my urgency. I was like, my kid is really sick. We need to get her in there. And I knew that type 1 diabetes was a lifelong thing. I didn't have any illusions at that point. I was like, oh, this is a big deal and it's permanent. Okay. But first we've got to, figure out why she's so sick right now. I didn't know what DKA was. I didn't know why it was dangerous or why she was this sick right now.
Yeah.
But they took great care of us in the hospital. I was a bit of a mess. She was barely conscious. I read over her first endocrinologist notes yesterday, and they kept saying severe DKA, DKA. So
I feel bad for the person at the hospital that takes your temperature coming in, because people really don't appreciate that job, you know?
Usually I can be philosophical about it. Like, yes, this is what we have to do.
I'm just thinking that this person, if you ask them,
like, my kid's gonna die. Let me in.
I know. I'm just saying. I think in their personal life, people say to them, "What do you do for a living?" You're like, "Oh, I approach people with thermometers, and they yell at me." That's my job. That's my job.
Cannot be fun. Yeah, they're nobody's favorite person.
Yeah, oh my God. I just need to take your temperature. My arm's broken. Yeah, I just need to take your temperature. You don't need my temperature. My arm's broken. I don't know what to tell you. They hired me to take your temperature. It's like, I got to do it. Okay. Oh my gosh. How long were you guys in the hospital for?
So we came in on Saturday morning and she was discharged, I think, Monday afternoon. Okay. So she was in the PICU for like a day and a half and then on a regular floor for like a night.
You head home. This is 2 years. I mean, it's not that long ago, really, 2 years ago. So you head home with what? Like, what are your marching orders?
Let's see. We had Tresiba and we had Humalog, both pens. I think they sent us out of the hospital on like 9 units of Tresiba. And I think by the time she got onto a pump 4 months later, she was on like, 20 something units of Tresiba.
How tall is she again?
Right now, she's about 5'4", 5'5". She grew a ton. Like she hit that like puberty growth spurt right after diagnosis. Mm-hmm. So she's in women's clothing. Like she is. I mean, she's gorgeous.
It's women's clothing. Okay, you don't want the women's clothing thing. You don't want that. Just try to avoid that as long as you can. So
it's so much more expensive than going to Once Upon a Child. Oh my God.
Well, that's not untrue. Yeah, it's more expensive for sure. That's one part of it. So what makes you come on the podcast? Like, I know you listen and you've listened for a while, mm-hmm. and that's fantastic. But what made you think I should come on?
Well, you actually put out a little call. Hey, it was right. Of course, when I was thinking about coming on, it's like a year ago, right? Mm-hmm. We're starting some of the type 2 stuff. And shortly after my daughter was diagnosed, my husband's annual screening popped a funky A1C. Like he'd been riding in the high fives for a while. And I was like, this is not good. I don't like it. Mm. But the doctors were like, yeah, that's normal. I'm like, oh my God, it's not. And he finally had an A1C approaching 7. And they were like, oh, that's type 2. Let's slap a Dexcom on you, because our former insurance at that time, they were super, super great for diabetes. I'm so sad that we don't have that anymore, because they covered Dexcom 100%, pump supplies 100%, like outside the deductible. It was amazing. So they put a Dexcom on him, and then with some diet modifications, mainly cutting out sugared soda, he brought that down to 5.3. Now, I'm sure it's creeping back up, but he hasn't gone to the doctor in a while. Because he's a man.
He doesn't do anything really except he cut out soda.
Right. And he got a little more receptive to my stop eating burritos, that sort of thing, like stop eating wheat. Mm-hmm. I think being gluten-free keeps us out of a lot of processed carb trouble, just because it's not as convenient to find it. You have to go looking for the gluten-free stuff. Mm-hmm.
I've had a ton of experience driving from the north to the south on the East Coast, and you get to a certain part, I don't know exactly when to say it is, but all of a sudden, just even stopping at a gas station or a convenience store to get a bottle of water or use the bathroom or something, drinks that don't have sugar in it start to disappear as you go south. And you wouldn't notice that really because you live there, I would imagine. But like,
I'm from the Midwest. I grew up in Illinois.
Okay. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't spend much time up with you Yankees.
You can buy a lot of diet or low carb drinks here that once you get, where am I going to say? Virginia, North Carolina-ish, they start to disappear.
I believe that.
Yeah. And then
my husband was raised in Cleveland. So I don't know. We go up there and I'm like, oh my God, the food's terrible. It's like, so like everything got a bun on it.
Well, you guys, so how do you end up in your little hippie commune that you live in now, where what are you doing? You got chickens. It sounds like you're teaching the kids, at home. Like, what else are you doing there?
Yeah, I have a big garden. Let's see. went to school in St. Louis, and that's where my husband and I got married and started out. And then he was looking for jobs, and I'm by training, I'm an accountant, so I could work anywhere. So it was like, okay, let's find you a job that you like. It's not a traveling job. He was traveling when we were first married, and he came down here for Nissan. There's a big car plant in Middle Tennessee, and we just ended up here. And I remember I cried. I was like, my children are going to be from Tennessee, and now I wouldn't leave it for anything.
Mm-hmm.
I don't always love the politics, but I do love like being able to target practice in my backyard and have chickens and homeschool and stuff like that.
What are you shooting in the backyard, Melissa?
Oh, you name it.
We talking about guns, arrows?
Oh, yeah, gun.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No. My dad's a police officer and my husband was in the Army, so I'm familiar.
I gotcha. Okay, so you moved there for a job. Did you end up working? Like you said, you could work anywhere. Did you get there and start working?
Yes. Mm-hmm. I worked for a malpractice insurance company, but mostly for podiatrists. It's right. It's
really
pretty low risk unless you're working on diabetics.
You like doing the accounting for podiatrists specifically? It's good for you.
Well, it was the insurance. It was selling the insurance for the podiatrist, and some of them are surgeons. Like they actually do surgery. So
no kidding.
But yeah, it was a great place to work. Not the least of which was that it was almost an all-female department. Amazing people to work with. So I left there. I always knew, like hubby and I had kind of decided I was going to stay home with the kids. I wanted to do the cloth diaper, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. People were like, what are you going to do? And I was like, well, just be poor. It'll be okay.
We'll just be poor.
Well,
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying.
At the time, I was making the same kind of money that he was.
And you give it away then.
That's an adjustment. And then, but of course, having a stay-at-home wife, that's, I'm sure, helped him in his career. Although he's super liberated and stuff. He does the laundry. I love him.
I love that when guys do like one of the 500 things that I do, I hear their wives are like, oh, I love him. He does the laundry. And I look around my house and I'm like, no one appreciates the stuff I do here. Like I know my wife is so spoiled by it because we've been doing it for so long that it just all feels like, oh, that stuff Scott does. If I did half the things I do in another household, I think I'd be carried around on a throne. Like I really do. But it's okay. I don't mind.
No, to be fair,
go ahead. I
am a terrible housekeeper. The best I can say most days is like, but have you ever run out of toilet paper? Like I do take care of those sorts of things, but I'm no housekeeper. Let's be real clear on that.
You said to your husband, I'm going to stay home with the kids, but please have very low expectations.
That's kind of how it's worked out.
I'm going to try to lock the doors at night and keep the place at a reasonable temperature. If I can do that, I think you call it a win.
Good looking. I don't know what his deal is, but he likes me.
Well, God bless. Okay. So, is there any other autoimmune stuff in the family?
So there's a strong history of type 2. I mean, an insulin dependent, it's not like your grandma, but like younger people being insulin dependent, type 2s.
How young?
As far as I know, his biological grandmother on his father's side, like she had major type 2 complications. And then he also had, I don't know a ton about this. I just know of it. On his biological father's side, there was a half sister who unfortunately passed away from, I think, type 1 complications. Like I know she was a type 1 diabetic and I know she passed away very young. I think she was like in her late 20s, early 30s. And I know she had type 1, but they were not raised together. We never knew her. We didn't find out my husband was adopted until he was 35 years old.
Oh. So wait, is the half sister from anybody he's actually related to?
Yes, because as it turns out, he was adopted by his paternal grandfather and his paternal grandfather's wife.
Let's go. Now we're getting to it. Okay. What the hell are you talking about? Wait, how does that, I don't understand.
So apparently everybody knew but him. The way I found out, he was, Scott, he was in Japan for 6 weeks. Our son was like not even 2 years old. And he was overseas with Nissan. And I was picking up some hand-me-down little boy clothes from a cousin of his. And the ages are all over the place, big family. So she had a grandson who's the same, size as our son was coming into. And she was like, oh yeah, I'd love to give these to you. And I stopped by in between my folks' house and home. And I know what she was thinking. She's like, I'm terminally nosy, right? But I also understand boundaries. So sometimes the nosiness is so painful, right? But she had this opportunity where she could ask a nosy question without being hurtful to the person it was actually about, right? So she was like, so is Brian in touch with his biological parent? And I looked at her and I go, his what? And like the color drained from her face. I mean, there are people who think what she did was malicious. She did not know. We did not know.
How about that?
She had no idea.
Interesting. Well, I like a little family drama. That's nice. Okay. So he is related to somebody else who had type 1 diabetes.
Right. So his adoptive father, his biological grandfather, passed away when he was 7. He was much older than his mom. And I'm going to call his adoptive parents his mom and dad without any qualifiers. We're going to put qualifiers on the bio.
Does he know his actual parents?
Well, he was raised to think that his biological father was his half brother.
All right.
Now, but tell you
away?
what, you want to hear my gripe? When that dude passed away, Brian was not mentioned in the obituary as a son or a brother. And I was like, why isn't that nice? I was salty about that.
I love this little intrigue you guys have going on here. This is Ohio Intrigue?
I guess, like Ohio and Kentucky. There's like people that are still in Cleveland. There's people that are in Kentucky, various cities in Kentucky. And we reconnected with one of his brothers. So I guess biologically his uncle, when my middle kiddo was very small. I was actually looking over his shoulder. He was surfing on Facebook and I was like, hey, you've got a message request over here. And it was his brother who had been looking for him. Mike, I love you. I might get choked up. Mike is so lovely, so accepting. So, when the stuff about finding out you're adopted was new, we actually didn't know who were his parents, or was our last name our last name? We didn't find out the part about, oh, you were adopted by your biological grandfather. We didn't find that out till a couple years later.
Were you put in the position where you had to go home to your husband, or he was in Japan? He was in
Japan.
Did you call him
over Skype?
Yeah, no. You wait till he gets home, right? And
correct.
You
say, the baby's taking a nap, and you go. I did first, I was like, okay, how can I confirm this? Like, I'm not going to tell him some wild story, that I can't. So of course, this was 13 years ago.
This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by Eversense. And Eversense is the implantable CGM that lasts 6 months. EversenseCGM.com/juicebox. Have you ever been running out the door and knocked your CGM off? Or had somewhere to be and realized that your adhesive was about to fall off? That won't happen with Eversense. Eversense won't get sweaty and slide off. It won't bang into a door jamb, and it lasts 6 months, not just a couple days or a week. The Eversense CGM has a silicone-based adhesive for its transmitter, which you change every day. So it's not one of those super sticky things that's designed to stay on you forever and ever, even though we know they don't work sometimes. But that's not the point. Because it's not that kind of adhesive, you shouldn't see any skin irritations. So if you've had skin irritations with other products, maybe you should try Eversense. Unique, implantable, and accurate. So if you're tired of dealing with things falling off or being too sticky or not sticky enough or not staying on for the life of the sensor, you probably want to check out Eversense. EversenseCGM.com/juicebox. Links in the show notes. Links at juiceboxpodcast.com.
So, internet chat rooms were a thing and forums and stuff like that. So I went onto an adoptees forum and I was like, oh my God, help me. What do I do? Do I need to have like a therapist waiting at the door? Do I need what do I need to do?
The internet will definitely know.
I'm not keeping the secret. I'm not participating in any of the secrecy. I will not.
Oh no, you
I've
can't
got
do
to
that.
tell him.
Right. What did the internet say?
The internet says there's such a thing called search angels, and we will put you in touch with one who can search the public records in Ohio and tell you what you can find out. And they were like, yes, he's adopted. Because what they do is they match up the birth date, like all the children born on this date, and they kept his first and middle name the same. So that was helpful. And then like, okay, none of these people have any other public records. So they were a baby and then their name changed. And then we have this going forward. So you could get a birth name.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I did what I could on the internet, you know, even Facebook, like people do not lock down their Facebooks. But
were you Facebook snooping people?
I totally did. I totally did.
You know, I know what I'm going to call this episode. So a couple of minutes ago, I thought, I'm going to call this episode Palace Intrigue. But now I think I'm going to call it Chicken Coop Intrigue.
That's great. That's great.
I'm writing that down. I love it.
We did not have a chicken coop at that time. We still lived in a neighborhood with sidewalks back then.
It's all right. This is my way of being humorous. This is what I'm going with. Yeah. This is not a goddamn thing to do with diabetes, and I'm still very happy you told me about it. That's it. And so now you're picking.
For me, it is wrapped up in the diabetes stuff.
Okay, how?
The family history is all from his side, and like, I mean, when I'm in the hospital, it's all I can think about. I was like, oh my God, she died.
Oh, so you
because
you went through
like
all
I knew
this
about that at the time.
Yeah. So when you're in the hospital with your kid, you're like, this is what killed somebody else in the family.
Correct.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's upsetting.
Well, and I kept, because they were like, does anybody else have it in the family? I was like, well, my husband's half sister, but she died. And I was like, oh my God.
Did you say, listen, my husband's deceased father's father adopted my husband. I think that his daughter, I'm not sure, but I don't even know how you explain
that is how
all
it
that.
Is to try to explain his family.
It's so confusing. Oh my God.
And the thing is, like, he didn't know from birth. This was just, you know, people made quote unquote jokes to him about finding him in a Cabbage Patch. Apparently they weren't jokes.
My God.
I know.
Was this, I hate to ask, but his father have like drug issues?
I honestly don't know. I could not speculate.
How old was he when he passed away?
I think he was in his 50s or 60s.
Oh, wait. His father was, how old was your husband when he was adopted?
His adopted father, he was 54. And then his bio father just died in the last 5 or 10 years.
At what age did his grandfather adopt him? What age for your husband?
Honestly, it depends on who you ask.
Okay.
And, you know, and everybody involved is getting up there in age. So,
I mean, I'm this close to singing the song to the Beverly Hillbillies, so I don't know what to say right now.
This wasn't really like that. Now, we have had contact with his bio mother.
Okay. Did he ever know her? He knew the father. He knew the bio father as a brother, but did he know the bio mother?
Yes, she was a friend of the family, and we have like photos of the bio mother and his older half sister from his mom, like at birthday parties.
Melissa, here's what I'm going to say to everybody
family
listening.
Birthday parties.
This is what I'm going to say to everybody listening. When you find yourself lying, stop yourself, because this is where it goes 30 years later.
For real. Nobody's that slick.
Exactly. You're not that slick. I used to tell my mom that. My mom would try to trick me into doing something. I'm like, Mom, do you feel like you're tricking me into this right now? I was like, that's not happening if you think it is. But man, did she think it was. She thought she was so smart. And she was, writing this story and everybody was buying into it. I'm like, Mom, no one believes that. And people do it all the time. Just tell the truth. I mean, honestly, what truth could have been worse than what you just explained? Seriously.
Yeah, I mean,
nothing.
And it feels like there's a really socially acceptable story for adoption. We chose you. You are wanted and loved.
It feels good.
Like, why would people hide that? And
yeah.
I think there's probably some fear from his mother that he wouldn't love her anymore. I don't know why she would think that.
Right. And
he wouldn't let me ask her about it for years.
Yeah, I'm just telling you, you're outsmarting yourself and nobody else. And it's going to go poorly. If you get all those people together and ask them, do you wish at this time, it doesn't matter what the story was. It doesn't matter. Let's say the father was in jail and the mom was on heroin. Okay. And so the grandfather had to step in and do something. I think it's better to just know that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like whatever the truth is, I think it's better to just know the truth and live with it than it is to make up all these stories that no way are going to, like, you're not going to keep this story forever. This is why in every movie when three guys rob a bank, one of them kills the other two. Because you look at the group and you go, they're going to crack. Like, that's it. Like nobody, and you know, like you said, somebody told you one day and you think, okay, they weren't being malicious, but other people think they were being, but it doesn't matter if they were or they weren't. It came out eventually. So I don't know, like to me, this whole story tells me, just be honest. That's
yes.
real,
Well,
that's
and
really.
then, I mean, and with the advent of 23andMe, 23andMe is not keeping y'all secrets. So I did it as part of a fertility study years and years ago. We had a hard time having our youngest.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got it, did one of those half price deals for my husband to have it. And then a few years ago, he popped up this first cousin match that made 0 sense. None. Zero. Zilch. And, she got in contact with us. She got in contact with him. And of course, then I took over because, nosy, hello. With his permission, he was like, oh, do you want to handle this? And I was like, absolutely.
I would love to get involved in this.
Well, listen. She was like, well, this doesn't make any sense at all. And I was like, I know. I was like, well, my husband's adopted. So, but we're quite sure of who's who. Like we have, his mom helped me clear some things up. And then we've been in contact with his bio mom and some other family members, stuff like that. Like it all matched.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, well, maybe you've got something wrong. And I was like, I don't think so. And it did come out eventually that who she was told her bio father was not her bio father. And it was somebody on my husband's bio mother's side. And that was like a whole, like 23andMe is not keeping y'all secrets.
What the fuck are you people all doing? I don't just mean your family. I mean everybody listening. What is happening?
That's the thing. Like you look at people and you think, oh, everybody's normal and average, right? I mean, and this is a recurring theme on the podcast in general too, right? People are interesting. Even like a normal, boring, ordinary life does have
you don't have to dig far.
Stories and twists and turns and stuff like that.
No, it happens all the time.
And she's lovely. Like, thank you, 23andMe, for putting us in contact.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm adopted. And I've done 23andMe and gotten nothing out of it. Like, it's not like I thought like one person would pop up and I'd be like, oh my God, it's great. I could ask somebody, nothing. Years ago, Kelly made me contact an attorney and I got contact with my biological mother's sister.
Mm-hmm.
And after an hour and a half on the phone, I hung up and I said to Kelly's like, how'd it go? And I'm like, I am never contacting those people again. Because the same thing, it's just like the stories you like, if your uncle this calls, don't listen. He's going to want money. And I'm like,
oh, Lord.
And this happened here and this. And I'm like, I'm trying to ask these questions just to get enough answers for myself. I get a little bit of answers for some things that I cared about. And then I never, ever, I so am disconnected from that idea that if you asked me my biological mother's name, I'd have to search for it for a second in my head. Like that's how far I pushed it out of myself because I was like, these are not people I want to be involved in. I think that's sort of the lesson, which is you tolerate the family you have, right? Like we're all related to somebody who's a lunatic and we're all related to somebody who's not. And everywhere in between, there's lovely people in my family and there's crazy people in my family. And I grew up around them, so they don't seem crazy to me. Like I know they are intellectually, but I can make allowances for them in my head. You bring another person into my life who's whacked out of their skull or making bad decisions, and I don't have any personal connection to them, I'm done. Like, I don't want to be involved with that. So, like, it's all very, I don't know. I don't care what somebody else did with their 52 years ago. That doesn't make me related to you. Like, I don't care that there's a bloodline there. It's meaningless. I'm related to my biological mother and father. They're my parents. I have 2 brothers who I'm not biologically related to at all, who I would step out in front of a truck for. And, and I really don't want to know about the rest. I really don't care because I think that this is all that's going to happen. I believe everybody who's adopted just thinks like, oh my God, my mom was obviously like a supermodel and she had to go to a photo shoot in France. And so she couldn't take me with her. And so I got put up for adoption. She's probably the princess of Monaco now. But no, your parents are this. This is what you got away from. I hate to say that, but I really believe it's true. So good luck for you. I feel lucky that I'm adopted. When I talked to those people, I talked to those people and I was like, thank God they gave me away. Anyway, this thing's fucked up too, though. I love this. It's not the same thing.
It was very, very interesting.
Yeah, because you know why it's interesting is because you're raising 3 kids and you have like a nice nucleus and a little family. You're growing. Your husband works. You're taking care of the stuff that you're taking care of. And you don't, I'm assuming you don't have children with somebody else he doesn't know about. I'm assuming your husband hasn't made 16 babies somewhere else that you're not aware of. Like you're just being a normal person. Like just be normal, for God's sakes. Is it that hard? Is it all sex?
Apparently it is.
I mean, how hard can it be to just, like, life is so short and it's tiring to begin with. Find one person that will have sex with you. That's good. Get a house. Buy some food and drop dead. Like, what are you doing?
I can get there because I am super content with my little life. I like it.
I don't think you have a little life.
I'm important enough to my kids and my husband. Like that. That's enough for me.
Melissa, I don't think you have a little life at all. I think you have a lovely life. And your kids will go off and make their own life. They're like, what is it people expect is going to happen? Do you know what I mean? Like, what are you trying to...
Maybe that is like a thing, where everybody's trying to become like the goal is to become famous, to be known.
So in a small town existence where you're not on television or have fame somewhere or a professional sport, you can be the person who has all these stories about them and everybody knows about me. And do you think that might be it? Like they're just looking for connection with people?
I don't know, maybe.
It doesn't matter if it's good connection. I don't know. I don't think you have a little life. I think you have a lovely life. And I think that I do too. I get up, right? I say good morning to my wife. I try to catch a look at her before she gets her bra on. That's fun for me. And then I grab some eggs and then I make a podcast. And then I talk to my kids and I help them with stuff. I do the laundry. The other day I had a gutter break. I went out and bought a piece for a gutter. What is it I should be doing? Like I should be impregnating 6 women? Like, do you know what I mean? Like creating chaos in people's lives? Like, I don't understand. Like, I really don't.
Some of us are just lucky to have gotten through our, teens and early 20s without making big mistakes.
You think it's luck?
Some of it.
I think some of it's luck.
Some of it's good decisions, but some of it's just there. But for the grace of God, go I.
I think if I told you what I think it is, people wouldn't like me.
I tell my husband that all the time. I'm like, you think I'm a nice person, but that's because I just don't say what I'm thinking.
No, I think it's the 20 IQ points some people are missing. That's what I think it is. Seriously, because you call it a good decision, but what's the root of a good... What, do I sound angry? I'm not angry. I'm just talking loud.
Oh, I know.
The root of a good decision is being able to think through something. That's all. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
and wait and delay that impulse, like not kill somebody.
What's that saying? Those who know don't say, and those who say don't know. Right? Like, you got to know when to keep your mouth shut. like you have to know what's important to articulate and what's not. These are impulses that people have. And I don't know. I'm sorry. This is off the rails completely. But like,
well, I knew the family stuff was going to take us off the rails a little bit, but it's part of our story because it involves how the type 2 came about, how the type 1 came about, like, and it's, I'm glad we got reconnected with his father's side of the family because I wouldn't know about some of this stuff otherwise. Yeah. Like Mike has made things a lot easier for us by helping us know these things.
My best advice to anyone, if things are always going wrong for you, you don't know what you're doing. I know you're blaming everything else, but it's probably you. and I don't mean that like it's like you're...
It's at least worth considering and looking into.
Consider for a second that the first thing that pops into your head might not be the best idea. Go look at other people who are having successes and say, how did they handle this situation? Oh, it's funny. I thought this and they did something completely different. I wonder what would have happened if I did that. If you have trouble eating, here's one for you. I swear will work. If you're overweight and you don't know why, go to the grocery store and follow fit people around. Just go to the aisles they go to. Notice that they don't go into the aisles you go to. Notice that they're picking up something different than what you would pick up. Buy the food they're buying. Eat that. That's how they got there. Life's not some unknowable thing. If you're constantly having money troubles and your brother doesn't have money troubles, call your brother up and say, I have money trouble all the time, but you don't. Can you tell me what you do? And I'm going to tell you what I do. And you could maybe make some suggestions to me, because why would you just, it's always, I don't know what happened, or somebody else screwed me, or I don't know.
Shame is very powerful, and avoiding it is a powerful motivator, I think.
Yeah, screw all that. I want people to have a happy life. And I hate to say it, sometimes you're not the right person to decide. And there's no shame. I don't think there's any shame in that. There are so many things I don't understand. So many things I don't know the first thing about. And if they are something I need to be involved in, I go find somebody else that understands it. That's it. I do not run around pretending that I know how to do something I don't know how to do. It would be stupid. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to screw it up. I'm going to put us in a deficit. I'm going to cost us money. I'm going to waste time. I know it's not something people think about, but all of you don't know what the hell you're talking about. I don't know what I'm talking about sometimes. I'm good at this thing. Do you know what I mean? I have some things I'm good at. I have some things I look at my wife and I go, help me. I don't know what to do. I'm dumb. It's not, I don't know. There's no harm in it. No. Melissa, you've made me very upset. I don't even know why. How's the kid? How's the diabetes? Is it all right? How's she doing?
So, you mentioned us in episode, it was 922, one of the myths.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah.
At minute 17, you said, this lady's putting in a massive amount of effort. And I was like, thank you for seeing me, because her A1C has been 5.4 to 4.9 for the last year plus.
Wow.
We use Control IQ. We use sleep mode around the clock. Christina Kria's advice has been really helpful for us as far as how to game that so it can let us ever be below 110. Puberty and, the advent of periods have been kicking my butt. So that's why we went, because we held 5.1, 4.9. We held that for a long time.
This is a pretty low carb lifestyle too, right? Lower carb.
Lower.
Yeah.
Lower, but sometimes we go nuts. And, she's always been my fruit bat, literally since she could have food that wasn't boob. She's always been my fruit bat. So I don't like to not let her have fruit. So that is something, I have read Bernstein. I like it. I get where he's coming from, but I'm not going to count my kid's salad, and I'm not going to say she can't have fruit. And I'm not counting out 4 berries. I'm not going to do it.
4 berries.
Honestly, that's why I like you so much. I can be a fence straddler in the Juicebox Podcast Facebook group.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I get from both sides, but I don't get a lot of it because it's not really tolerated, and everybody's encouraged to just do what works for you. So we straddle that fence. We're in both sides. We're in, what is it? Aim small, miss small, small dose. And
use less insulin.
Use the insulin that you need for what you're going to eat.
Right.
I don't care how you eat, just learn how to dose insulin. So that's kind of where we are. I will say puberty's kicking my butt, and these first cycles where I know how the female hormones in general affect things, but since cycles are not regular yet, I don't know when this is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Okay, so we're super insulin sensitive, right after the period starts, and maybe some really great sensitivity, right at mid-cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll have more carbs today because it'll be easier.
Yeah.
And then, toward right before PMS time, it's major harder. Insulin resistance.
Right.
And we've always, her basal to bolus ratio has always been more 70-30.
Mm-hmm.
The 50-50 stuff I read in books. I read Pumping Insulin. It's a great book. I read Think Like a Pancreas, but I found your podcast weeks, 1, 2, 3 weeks in. And so I really feel like the podcast spoke to me because I knew I was responsible for it and I wanted to direct it. If I'm responsible for it, if I'm accountable for it, I have to have control over it. So when the doctor, I'm calling into the doctor asking for new pump settings. We got a pump, we had a Dexcom I'm sorry, I'm jumping around. We got a Dexcom a week. She was discharged on a Monday. We had it on a Friday. Our first endocrinologist, she has since left to make a concierge practice, and we don't have that kind of money. So whatever takes insurance, that's where we're going.
It's a hell of a thing.
In our city, it's one practice now. So we're with them now. But the first one, she was like, get that technology, get it. And we have a high deductible plan. She was diagnosed, we had a PICU stay in October. And I said to them, I was like, we know we want a pump. This is what she's decided she wanted. We need to get it before the end of the year, before the deductible.
Right. Gotcha.
May, love you, who took up for us. She even said to me, this is how vain I am, right? I remember she said to me when I was saying, okay, so this is what I saw and these are the adjustments I made to her MDI insulin. She was like, this is the kind of critical thinking we're looking for. And I'm like, ooh, I'll take those ass pats all day long. Because, it can sometimes be a little thankless caring for children in general. And, MDI was harder.
Nice to hear somebody say I'm doing a good job.
I do love a pump. Those algorithms, I wish everybody could have them.
So you brought a lot of stuff up here. I think that it's worth talking about that most people listening don't know that online there's, small wars that go on over, between low carb and people who eat carbs and type 1s, right? And it's not everybody. It's a, small faction of people who are very specific about their eating styles. And if you try to get involved with them and then you say, oh, I'm going to add fruit to this, they'll be like, you're, a bastard.
Killing your kid.
Yeah. Kid. But I want to say something that I've learned recently. This is going to sound disconnected for a second. I have, for my entire life, wanted a chameleon. I know that's a weird thing. I'm an older person. And we were having a conversation around the house recently where somebody's like, what is a thing you don't do that you could do? And I said, I could have a chameleon. And people, I know, they looked at me weird. I'm like, my whole life, I thought I'd like to have a chameleon, but I've never done it because they're not easy pets to take care of. There's a lot of responsibility. I feel very responsible for living things. Sometimes I don't enjoy that, that feeling of, it feels like that thing now comes before I do. That's how I deal with things. My kids come before me. My wife comes before me. If I get a chameleon, it's going to come before me. But I thought I could do this. Right. And I said it out loud when we were talking about this thing. And my kids go out and get me a chameleon for Christmas. They buy the habitat, learn all about it, set it up, go find one, get it, this whole thing. And as soon as I see it, I have this feeling of dread. I'm like, no. I don't want to be I don't want this. I don't want the responsibility that comes with this. But because they did it, I smiled and I was like, thank you. This is really wonderful. Thank you so much.
They're making your dream come true as far as they're concerned.
Right, exactly. And so now I'm teaching myself all about it. Right. And I'm lucky. I have a little bit of time. I could do some reading while I'm editing and stuff like that. I figure some stuff out. I know what I need to do to take care of this thing so that it's healthy and et cetera. But at one point I go into a Facebook group about chameleons and I'm struck immediately with the juxtaposition between some of the people in the chameleon group and low carb people in type 1 diabetes online. And it's really interesting. And then I realized it's not diabetes. It's not chameleons. It's not anything. It's people. Some people believe they have the end all be all answer.
There is only one way.
There is only one way. And if you don't do these things, you are the devil. Immediately. And not just you're the devil and you're going to kill that chameleon, but you're going to say you did this thing out loud and other people are going to kill their chameleons too because you have spread bad information. And then I was like, oh my God, this is the same thing about COVID. I was like, this is just people. This is not a COVID argument. It's not a chameleon argument. It's not a low carb diet argument. It's just how people's brains work. Some people grab onto something so firmly and they say to themselves, my way or the highway. And now because of the advent of the internet, they are able to make passionate pleas to you, but they never come off as pleas. They always come off as telling. Like, you have to do this and you have to do that. And if you don't use the enclosure that you're supposed to use, the chameleon's going to die. And I'm like, and then you go to another person that says, hey, you know what? It turns out if humidity in your house is one way, well, this kind of enclosure would work for you. And if humidity in your house or where you live is another way, this one might be more appropriate. But I go back to the first person. They're like, no, it absolutely has to be this one. If you don't do this one, you're a monster. And I think that's how I see some people talk to people about low carb in diabetes. But it's not everybody. Their voices are so loud and they're so, I don't know what the word is. It's vicious.
They're very sure.
Yeah.
They're very sure.
Yeah. Very positive and sure. And I've thought about it in the past, and I was like, specifically around low carb and type 1. And I thought they just feel like they found an answer to something and they want you to be okay the way they're okay now. Because listen to what you're saying. Your kids' A1C is between 4.9 and 5.4. It's fucking amazing, but it doesn't mean it's the only way to do it. And, it's not because they're bad people. It's not because they're anything. It's because they're trying to help. They're really trying to help, and they feel passionate about it.
I feel lucky that I can take ideas from everywhere and just do what I want to do.
Well, that's what I ended up doing with this. That's why I brought I was going to say the stupid chameleon. That's why I brought the chameleon up, because what I did was I looked and I saw the people yelling and I disregarded them. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to listen to the yelling people. And then I listened to everybody else and I paid attention to what they were saying. I applied it, to real implications in my life and my home and what I'm going to do here. And I'm like, I know these seem like healthy ways to deal with the situation. And as I'm having that experience, I think to myself, well, this is how I set up my Facebook group for diabetes. And that's why it works so well for you or for somebody who's going to, literally not eat low carb. You take the bits that work in your situation and you apply them and you have a nice outcome. That's all you're looking for.
The other thing that I think that the Juicebox group gives is a place to belong, even if you don't belong in any other smaller slot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of room for people to belong there.
Oh, it's a big tent idea for sure. I want everyone to be there. I don't care if you have type 1, if you have gestational, if you're the parent. I have grandparents in there, school nurses that have no connection to diabetes other than there's a kid that comes in their office that has type 1, parents and adults. There's 70-year-old people in there. There's 20-year-old people in there. And they all talk to each other just fine. It just turns out that, being led by common sense is really the key to success, I think. And I think that's the one thing that I have is common sense. So, it's the way I run the thing. I basically don't even do anything. I mean, secret time, you know what I mean? There's not a lot to do. You set up the expectation and then the people follow the expectation. You know what I mean? And like you said, I don't if somebody starts yelling at somebody or acting crazy, I take care of that right away. I'm like, we are not doing that. I want you here. I want you to be able to benefit from this. But if you're a crazy person, you got to go. That's that.
No peeing in the pool, folks.
Exactly. Right. I treat those people in the Facebook group the same way I treated my extended family when I found out where my adopted family was. I was like, no, thank you. You go ahead and go. You tell me someone's going to ask me for money, I'm done. I was like, okay, I'm not doing that. They start telling you some crazy stories and I'm like, that is not a story I want to be around. And that doesn't bring harmony to my life. And so that's what I want for that Facebook group is harmony. And it obviously works because it grows so fast. It's just fascinating how quickly it adds people. 150 every 4 days. It's really something.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. And there's still diagnoses are still happening. So it's going to keep coming.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever seen craziness and thought, oh, Scott's going to come take care of this right now?
No, most of the time I miss it. By the time I get there, somebody's referencing the craziness that's already been taken care of. It's like, oh man, I missed it.
It gets taken care of very, very quickly. Yeah, I'm not screwing around with that. So anyway, Control IQ aggressively with you're always using sleep mode with it. Mm-hmm. Dexcom G7, 6?
No, G6 so far. I'm sitting in a parking lot right now because neither the Wi-Fi nor the cell signal at my house will support a reliable like Zoom call. So I'm afraid to try and do the update for G7. And I love that it's backwards compatible, and apparently you can use Libre now too.
Oh, I saw that yesterday. They
yeah,
added
that
Libre
just came
to it.
up.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'm dying for them to partner with Tidepool. Like, I know that Omnipod said they weren't going to do it. So I'm like, who's left? Who's going to do Tidepool? I want Tandem to get a lower target through the FDA. If Tidepool could do 87, do it. Do it.
Yeah, it's an interesting problem. I don't know that many people know what you're talking about, but Tidepool.
Oh, see, I'm there because I like Control IQ. I would love it if I could set my target 95, 90 even. That would be so great because a lot of the time I'm fighting the algorithm, and I think poo on them for discontinuing basal IQ. Like, does that mean like the pump isn't going to be for people under 6 anymore? Because the Control IQ is not approved.
Well, you can just write it off label. That's what they'll do. The doctor will write for it off label. I'm going to tell you that I don't expect that thing will ever happen.
I was thinking maybe after the G7 integration, but
it doesn't seem like, from a business perspective, it doesn't seem like an idea that people would do. Like that there's just an algorithm out there and you can use it on our pump if you want to.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't seem like a good way to keep your market share and keep your this and keep your that.
It's also not a thing you can explain to people. Most people, they don't want to know about this. They want to go to the doctor and be like, hey, pump me. then the pump comes and they go, how do I use it? You use it like this. Great. Goodbye. That's it. They don't want to know about.
Yeah.
They don't want to know about.
Here's me. Like, I had my babies at home because I'm a control freak, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, you're feeding your own chickens.
I want to be in control of it.
Yeah.
Why can't I pick my number? Let me pick my number. I can do it. Like I said, I did 4.9 with, darn it, there's a train coming. I'm sorry.
Don't worry. Let the train happen. It'll be very authentic. This sounds like the Tennessee choo-choo. The Chattanooga. Oh,
Chattanooga.
I'm going to tell you something right now.
I'm not in Chattanooga.
I don't care. If we can hear that train, this is going to be Chattanooga choo-choo. But if we can't hear the train, you are stuck with chicken coop.
Intrigue.
Intrigue. Yeah. You better hope.
It's already going
you
fast.
better hope you can hear that train.
Well, that's the problem. I bought a microphone that said, "Oh, they can't hear me on my Zoom calls when my wife is bumbling through the house." So
too bad. Chicken coop Intrigue it is. But I just don't think that companies really want to be involved in that.
And there's probably I'm probably part of a small enough subset, like basal IQ people. They don't care. It's not a big enough group for them to worry about.
I mean, I don't know.
And that's what I have to keep remembering about diabetes. Like, not everybody is like the Juicebox podcast group where everybody's shooting for 5.5.
Yeah, nobody is.
It seems like everybody, because that's the only place I really hang out diabetes wise.
Mm-hmm.
And then I go out. It's kind of like parenting stuff. I go out into the world. I'm like, oh, okay. Not everybody's a hippie like me.
Yeah.
Okay. I forgot. I had been insulated enough.
Yeah. No, listen, most people are not doing that. Like, most people are just trying to get by. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's why I'm proud of building it up, because it means you're bringing in more and more people. Those people go back to doctors. They tell doctors, hey, I listen to a podcast, and guess what? Here's my A1C. It's 5.3. It's 6. It's, I don't work that hard, and it's 6, or I work a little harder and it's 5.5 or whatever. And then eventually doctors should be able to get into their heads like, oh, there might be ways to do this that aren't as difficult as I thought they were. And, maybe that spreads. But the truth of it is that for most people, they're going to have middling A1Cs, middling success. There are going to be a lot of people who have complications. Like, that's not new. So I think from a technology standpoint, companies are thinking, if that's who we're helping, then let's try to get this stuff in a place where it's plug and play. And you put it on them, and it's going to keep their A1C lower. It's going to keep their stability, lower. And they're going to have a better chance at a good outcome. Like, you're thinking about it like, I can learn this. I can do this. I can change my reality. Whereas I don't think a lot of people think that way. I think a lot of people think, oh, a thing happened to me. Mm-hmm. And now I have to use this device. and what's going to happen is going to happen.
No, our first endo told us when I was asking, I was like, we're having trouble with highs. Can you help me adjust? And they gave me pump settings that reduced her insulin delivery.
When you needed more insulin.
And I said, what about the highs I'm experiencing? We're not experiencing lows, we're experiencing highs. And the CDE told me, Dr. So-and-so will not give pump settings that increase insulin delivery unless and until her average glucose is above 200.
Yeah. Well, that's a problem.
That was where I got angry. And it wasn't the CDE's fault, but I was like, then clearly we have different goals.
Yeah.
For my daughter's health.
Yeah. That's insane. So your doctor wouldn't give you orders to increase insulin until average blood sugar was 200?
Yes. And so I was like, okay, I'll do it myself. And I had the podcast at that point, so I could. Like, I had read Think Like a Pancreas. I had read Pumping Insulin. I had these tips and like, here's the variables I'm working with. Here's, the things that could affect it. Here's, and I'm not saying we never have to catch lows. We do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not perfect, but we're just always trying to keep it under 2%. I don't like lows to go over 2%. I know 4% is like the ADA standard, but that's not what we're shooting for.
I mean, I don't care about the ADA standard. I care about what your standard is. Just do what you can do, Well,
I feel like mine is reasonable. And I think that's where I was butting heads with the endo. Like, just support what I want because I can tell you why it's good.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. With some doctors, it's not going to happen. With some doctors, it will. You'll get ones that understand it on a bigger scale, and you'll get ones that don't. That's the thing that I want people to understand, is that a doctor that's willing to manage you with a 200 blood sugar is saying extensively, I will trade problems down the road for not being low right now.
Is that common among pediatric endocrinologists because they don't see the complications? Like, it's not their problem?
It's common with everybody because they don't, it doesn't exist. I'm turning around to get to another computer. So they don't have the thing I have. And that thing is access to you. I don't have a pressure of having to say everything today. I can say something in one episode and something in another episode and a third thing and a fourth thing. And you can take 6 months to listen to those and listen to them and make sense of them and coalesce it together. Did I use the word coalesce twice today? And take your time and build a narrative for yourself. The doctors don't have that. I couldn't tell you everything you needed to know in 15 minutes 4 times a year. It's unfair. And so maybe they've decided it just won't work. And so we'll shoot for, this because the ADA says it's okay. And if the ADA says it okay, then I'm not doing anything wrong. I don't have to feel bad about this. You know what I mean? Like, who knows? I'm not in their heads. I can tell you that an average 200 blood sugar is an A1C of 8.6.
She actually argued with me. She said, kids who have an A1C under 7 are having significant hypo episodes. And I was like, here's the Dexcom data. Show me the hypos. And she was complaining when we were at 6.1.
By the way, a 7 A1C is an average blood sugar of 154.
Yeah.
Or an 8.6 if you're in Canada and other places.
And see, that's one thing I really like about the strident low carb people is they're like, this A1C is not good for you. And I think we're not really hearing that from many other places.
Oh, I completely agree with them. Yeah. On that topic. I don't agree with yelling at people. That's all. And I also think that this is very manageable down on the farm. But if your daughter goes off to Ohio State one day and has to eat in the cafeteria, she might not know how to bolus for that if you don't teach her how insulin works. And then you're going to put all this effort into this 4.952 A1C for the first 18 years of her life. And then what happens to her when that food doesn't exist anymore? And she doesn't know how to insulin works because she's been so low carb that she's using, I don't know, regular and regular. What a low carb. Some low carb people still use like regular insulin, right? To like for their protein rises, which is cool. If you know how to do that, it's amazing. And if you're an adult living in a house, you have control over your food, go for it. That's cool. I think it's cool. But off in the world, 21 years old, 18 years old, good luck. You know what I mean? Like, so like my point is know how insulin works, be able to use it, and then apply it to the lifestyle you have. That's all.
Yes. And that's why I call us fence straddlers, because we eat fries, we eat taco shells. We have a brand of taco shells that are really easy to dose for.
Yeah. I'm sure you can figure a lot of stuff out, I would imagine. Like, I'm not against people eating low carb at all. I'm not certain that it's doable for everybody. And you can't just tell people it's doable and then send them out into the world. You're not there anymore. You know, you and your Facebook avatar are gone. That kid's at college. I don't know what they're going to do. And, you know, I've heard people say, well, you can meal prep and you can do that. I'm like, yeah, you know, I see you fancy lady in your kitchen with your $95,000 worth of like cabinets and countertops telling me how easy it is to meal prep. Your kitchen costs more than some people's homes. And, you know, like you're telling me how easy it is. I'm not saying anybody specifically. I've seen a lot of these ladies.
Right,
I've seen a lot of these ladies on the internet. All you have to do is, you just said it, by the way, you spend your life in the kitchen.
I do.
Yeah, right. So all you have to do, I'm at Walmart trying to make a living. I don't have this. Like, it strikes me like when famous people tell me that all I have to do is work out 3 hours a day. What the fuck am I going to do that?
It's so simple.
Melissa, I get up in the morning, I go for a walk, then I cold plunge. And then I like to get into a sauna. And then I have a nice breakfast of meats and cheeses that I've made myself. And then I'm like, where do you think my time and money comes from? I don't have a contract with like Warner Brothers. Like they're not paying me to be in a movie once a year. I can't do the things you're doing. I love it when famous people do that. Like, all you have to do, shut the fuck up. Like I don't have your money. I don't have your time. I don't have your access.
It's so simple, though. It's just a matter of prioritizing.
You don't know. Cold shock proteins, Melissa. Cold shock proteins. You need them. They're going to save your life.
Yeah.
How'd you like to live forever? Getting some cold water.
No, thank you.
So all I'm saying around diabetes is that people need practical advice. You're not saying anything wrong, that other person. Your variables aren't the same as theirs. You know, today I did this. I look at the plate. I'm like, this lady's grocery bill must be $1,000 every 2 weeks. she's like, oh, all I have to do. Have you ever done this? No, I haven't, because I'm at work. Because my grandfather is my dad. Like, I got going on. I want those people to be able to use insulin too. And it bears out. I see it bear out online all the time. You know, you take, again, like we talked about earlier, you pick and choose from the podcast the things that work for your life. And people are really able to keep low, stable A1Cs that are going to lead to good health and, you know, their ability to actually navigate the world that they live in. So anyway, I'm not against anybody's idea. Whatever works for you, I think is terrific. I'm very clear about that.
How do we get the endos to stop giving us a hard time for wanting an A1C under 6?
I mean, smiling.
Not giving is definitely, like option number one, but they stop hassling us?
No, they're not going to stop hassling you because they're just doing the thing they're supposed to. They're the lady with the thermometer or the guy with the thermometer at the emergency room. Like, hey, somebody paid me to be here with this thermometer. Open your mouth. Like, that's it. Like, I'm the doctor. This is what my practice does. I am now going to say the thing to you we say. So, it's up to you to be able to do I always call it like the Madagascar penguins from that movie. You got to smile and wave. Just when they're like, you know what their problem is? You go, yeah, okay, yeah, no problem.
Just write my prescriptions, please.
I'll take care of it. Yeah. Oh, don't worry, I'll turn it down. Thanks, bye-bye. And then just get the fuck out of there with your prescription and keep going.
I feel like I'm going to set my daughter up to not care as much what they think when she's on her own. But sometimes it feels like judgment when you're the parent in a pediatric endo office. Because it's not just your health, it's your kid's health.
Yeah.
If you're not doing it right, then
I don't know how to pass that part of myself on to people other than to tell you, like, I don't give a shit what other people think about what I'm doing. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, I'm happy to listen to outside, ideas all the time. And I integrate things people say to me constantly. But if you're wrong, then you're wrong. And so, I'm not going to give it any weight at that point. A person who would tell you, hey, your kid's A1C is 5.8, it's too low. I'm going to take away some of their basal. I'm like, what are you talking about? No.
Yeah. The hell you are.
2% lows? Are you kidding me? Is that what you have?
Yeah. We keep it less than 2%. A lot of times it's less than 2%.
No one should be telling you anything.
Yeah. You know what? The last endocrinologist appointment we went to, they only look back 2 weeks when they check our Dexcom data.
Mm-hmm.
And I was telling about something that had happened. So mom of the year, my husband was on the road for work and I had not slept in 2 days because various things that had happened, diabetes and baby wise. She had turned Control IQ off, which we sometimes have to do for dinner because it's always taking away basal. It's a specific problem that I can't get Tandem to help me with. Her basal gets stuck at 3, even though she needs more, which is a whole other thing. But we had turned Control IQ off and then forgot to turn it back on. And she was low at night and I slept through the alarms. And she slept through the alarms. And her dad is several states away getting urgent, and he had to send the police. He could not get anybody on the phone.
Right.
And he had to send the police to wake us up. And I said that. I, of course, brought that up thinking I was going to get help at the endocrinologist's office. And they basically documented it like they were going to document to turn me into CPS.
Yeah.
Nothing about anything else we talked about is like, you are treating with insulin for normal glucose levels and you need to not do that and blah. It was very upsetting to read those notes. And they wouldn't have even known about it if I hadn't brought it up and asked for help. Like if the algorithm, like we're bolusing for these corrections and it in turn takes away more and more and more and more basal because it's perfectly happy to let her sit at 200.
Mm-hmm.
So now I just have an alarm to turn Control IQ on every night at midnight.
Melissa, I want you to imagine what would have happened if you went into a doctor's office and told people who had 15 more points of IQ that same story. And then said, I just need help with this one problem. They're dumb. They don't know how to think. They hear a thing and they go, oh, scared, run. Some people have trouble thinking. I don't know what to say. It was horrible. I asked for help and instead they documented it like I had done something criminal. Yeah, I'm telling you.
I felt very defeated by that.
I bet you did. I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry you went through that. You're not a smooth criminal.
Well, I can't wait till our next appointment, which we have to cancel because we don't have insurance right now. But we'll see how the new insurance is. Oh,
can you sell some of those eggs to Aetna in trade or something like that?
No, those eggs are for my baby.
All right. How hard is it to feed a chicken every day?
Oh, not hard at all. Do you know what? I have set it up so I don't even have to feed them every day. So I went on the internet because everything's on the internet.
You put the chickens on Ozempic? I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
No. But hey, you're about to get me on it because I'm tired of being chubby.
I just switched. Actually,
but anyway,
yeah, good.
I'm perimenopausal. I'm sure there's other shit I should be doing, but no, I made like great big feeders with giant plastic trash cans. I got one of those circle bit things and cut a hole out and put in some PVC elbows.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't spread it everywhere. They just get their heads in and I can put 2-3 50-pound bags of food in there. And I always check it. Like I check on them every day and I gather the eggs and I shovel shit and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't have to. And I did the same thing with waterers. My husband helped me with that, getting great big barrels and, drilling holes and putting in little automatic cup waterers. And so like we check on them every day, but we don't have to haul water and haul food every single day. And that makes it so much nicer for us.
A little bit of ingenuity. That's all you needed.
Yeah. And an automatic Coop door lets them in and out. I mean, we can go on vacation now. It's great. This is why we don't have a dog. Like with first, we had our, the dogs that you get when you get married, you don't have kids yet. Well, we've been married a long time, so they're dead. And they died before the baby, the youngest, was born. She's going to be 5. By the time we were ready to think about getting a dog again, her food allergies were such that there was no way that we could have even crumbs of dog food anywhere. Mind you, I'm not a housekeeper, so that was a legit concern.
I don't know how to get this off the floor.
Yeah. I mean, there's many times like the kids, get food on the floor. And I'm like, oh, if only we had a dog. But, we've been dogless long enough now that I'm reluctant to jump back in. The chickens don't tie us to the house the same way a dog would. So I know kids need pets and stuff like that, but they're going to have to settle for chickens right now.
I'm just going to get a chameleon. And I already have one. Never mind. I'm good.
Yeah, my sister has a house full of reptiles, and she is a much cooler mom than me because I'm like, absolutely.
I'm not getting any more. This is just this one thing. It's good for me because I find keeping the chameleon to be a lot like raising a cactus, which is they are so slow that they really teach you how to be patient. And I need more patience, always more patience. So I can sit and watch that thing move a half an inch in 15 minutes and think, okay, I can slow down. You know what I mean? So I'm good with it. Anyway, I appreciate you very much doing this. I don't know what we talked about. It doesn't matter to me. I love the podcast. Sometimes we chit chat and things go one way or the other. I'm looking here. People are thrilled with an episode that went up the other day. I'm getting a lot of notes about episode 1100. So maybe yours will be one of those that one day I'll look online and be like, oh my God, I was listening to Melissa on episode 1500.
No.
And I had such a good time, or it was so thoughtful or whatever. But I really appreciate this. Thank you so much for doing this with me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you for sitting in a parking lot to get your Wi-Fi. I appreciate that too.
Yeah, well, I mean, pros and cons, rural living.
Hold on one second. I want to thank the Eversense CGM for sponsoring this episode of the Juicebox Podcast and invite you to go to eversensecgm.com/juicebox to learn more about this terrific device. You can head over now and just absorb everything that the website has to offer, and that way you'll know if Eversense feels right for you. eversensecgm.com/juicebox. A huge thank you to one of today's sponsors, Gvoke Glucagon. Find out more about Gvoke HypoPen at gvokeglucagon.com/juicebox. You spell that GVOKEGLUCAGON.com/juicebox. The conversation you just enjoyed was brought to you by US Med. usmed.com/juicebox or call 888-721-1514. Get started today and get your supplies from US Med. If you're not already subscribed or following in your favorite audio app, please take the time now to do that. It really helps the show. And get those automatic downloads set up so you never miss an episode. Thank you so much for listening. I'll be back very soon with another episode of the Juicebox Podcast. Hey, what's up, everybody? If you've noticed that the podcast sounds better and you're thinking like, how does that happen? What you're hearing is Rob at Wrong Way Recording doing his magic to these files. So if you want him to do his magic to you, wrongwayrecording.com. You got a podcast? You want somebody to edit it? You want Rob.